Hey, what's up, y'all? And this is a Lite-Bulb moment.
I'm Asania.
And I'm Deshaun.
And it's a motivational podcast.
Is it?
It is.
Oh, awesomeness. I love motivational podcasts.
Stay tuned.
Y'all check it out. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is the Lite-Bulb Moment Podcast, and I am Deshaun.
And I'm Asania.
And today we're going to talk about fear.
We're talking about fear. We're bringing fear to your face.
Fear.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Especially after watching all that video and stuff, that content about it. It puts so much stuff.
I'm scared. I'm scared that...
I'm scared.
I have fear that I'm not going to know what I'm talking about in this podcast. That's my fear.
Well, you know what you're supposed to do?
What?
You got to embrace that fear gradually.
Yeah. And just kind of, and that's what we do.
That's what
literally.
We're gradually embracing that fear
right.
about your conversation.
Exactly.
About fear. Because we just got a lot of insight about fear within a 30, 45 minute span, son.
It's like, where do we begin?
Yeah, I really don't know. So where do we begin? I guess we should begin with explaining exactly what fear is and how it affects your life.
Right.
I think fear is a instant response to a threat, if I'm correct, if that's what they said.
Right.
And it's your body processing that information like within seconds, quickly.
Exactly.
And then sending you into what is called fight or flight mode.
Right.
Which means either you're going to stand and deal with the situation or you're going to get the hell out of Dodge.
Right.
Like when they said when the car was coming, your body is not going to sit there. You're not going to sit there and calculate the speed,
exactly.
the velocity and everything. Your mind is going to say, yo, son, it's a threat.
Right. Like, boom.
Get the F out of here.
Yeah.
So that is also, that is what fear is.
Right.
But how does fear affect your everyday activity? Fear, everything else like anxiety, anger, depression, phobias, are all derivatives of fear. And I think that was very
important, yeah.
Very important because I thought anxiety is not necessarily fear, but anxiety is like prolonged thoughts of things that freak you out.
It's like when your mind just starts to get creative and do what it want to do, and it starts to create this,
right, and you start to stress about it,
right.
And so fear can be short term or long term. Long term fear creates all these other what do they call it? Because phobia is a starts with a D.
Disorder. Yeah.
So phobia is a disorder that's triggered from fear.
Right.
And it was like, yo, never thought about like OCD is a disorder that is triggered from fear.
Exactly.
So in this podcast, we want to discuss fear, but we also want to give y'all by the end some insight on how to dress, which is very simple from what I found out, from what I thought we learned, even though the other videos never really showed us. But this one individual it was a therapist in Atlanta. Not Atlanta, I'm sorry, in New York, who deals with fear and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And his approach was, it makes sense. It made 100% sense.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is being able to identify your fear and knowing what fear is and realizing that it's around us on a regular basis.
It is, all the time.
And it's actually a healthy part of our lives.
Fear is necessary.
Yeah, fear is necessary. Mm-hmm. Big time.
I think it kind of can help guide your life.
True.
Because, some people are scared that they're going to be in a certain place all their life. Or they're scared they're not going to reach certain goals. And, I think fear can kick in and kind of give you a little bit of structure as well. Do you have any, fears?
Yeah, heights.
Heights. Okay, you're scared of heights. I can't think of nothing I'm scared of. I know I'm scary, though. That's the thing. I'm not like Tarzan. You know what I mean? But
okay,
I don't like roaches.
So
they make me feel broke.
No, that sounds like it's just dislike.
Yeah,
like you don't freak the fuck out when a roach comes across.
When they start flying, that shit do get intense.
Okay, that's everybody.
That's different.
Roaches ain't supposed to be flying first and foremost. And you talk about roaches or water bugs?
Water bugs.
Why do we identify roaches as water bugs?
They do the same thing. They not.
Maybe they in the same family.
I don't know. Whatever them things is, when they start flying, they get serious.
Water bugs scare everybody. I don't know. Okay. Who don't freak out behind it? I'm used to them because the bitches was everywhere in New Orleans.
Yeah, shit.
Then they were extra big. But yeah, the average person I meet runs from them.
Yeah.
But Fear is healthy. From what they said, you're supposed to experience it. It's a part of your brain.
Right.
Your brain doesn't necessarily register fear like the emotion. It registers the events that occur in different situations that you're in that are translated into fear. Like, what did they say? Fear is kind of taught over time. Like and I've been saying this for the longest. Mm-hmm. Like how babies are able to learn. I can never understood why babies learn how to use touchscreen devices and new mobile devices the way they do. And then I started paying attention to older people who were like fear, like in fear of
technology.
Yeah. And I realized because, you said in the beginning, the child doesn't necessarily come into the world with fear.
Right.
It's a taught process. Mm-hmm. It's the adigula.
It's some part of the brain, medical terminology, yeah.
It's a region of the brain that registers the fear and processes it for you. And then it stores it in another part of the brain, which connects certain experiences or items or things with fear. So now when you think of this, it automatically triggers the fear aspect of your brain or whatever's going in, right. And then that releases endorphins into your body to help you do it. And it's crazy because now I think about it, because then when you're afraid, these endorphins actually shut down the other part of your brain,
right.
And like your logical thinking and everything.
Almost like a post-traumatic stress type thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they were saying when they were talking about the soldiers. How
right.
Yeah.
How it affected them and how it made that
same part of their brain
increase in size, and which makes sense because when you think about the other video we watched where they discussed how over time that sensor that identifies fear gets larger through your experiences and becomes more sharp when it comes to experiencing or identifying something that we consider a fear.
Right.
And over time, like, you just get better at it. And then that made sense why so many, and I'm not trying to take this to the racial space, but screw it. Why so many African American people as they get older either live in fear, anger, frustration, aggression, depression, or hostile.
Right.
Because those are all symptoms of excessive amount of fear.
Right.
Like when you just let shit linger and you focus on it, or like you don't address it straight up. Like, these other symptoms come about over time.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with your upbringing.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So,
Most definitely. I mean, because we're raised from a very young age to live in fear.
Right.
It may start with your mom or your daddy, and then it may progress based upon what their fears are and what they pass on to you.
Yeah, you inherit their fears.
You inherit their fear on top of whatever experiences you have on your own in your life. Too many fights, car accidents, something stings you, so on and so forth. Police. Mm-hmm. Right. Because we're trained on police at a very young age. So you spend most of your life going into your adulthood fearing police.
So environment plays a huge role.
A huge role. To be very honest with you, and I've been feeling this for a long time. I know this is going to probably get mad political. But, okay, so all the random shootings that we experienced starting from Trayvon Martin, because you realize, Dave, we don't see as much news.
They still happen, though.
They happen, but they're not being broadcasted.
Right.
And I had this theory, and actually it was funny because somebody else made a joke. I think it was Dave Chappelle made a joke about it and presented this theory also. But I had this theory that the fear had been shifted in the country. And what happened was in 2001, 9/11, when that happened, the fear of African American people shifted over to the fear of Middle Easterners. And then as time progressed, it went from Middle Easterners to Hispanic people with the immigration situation. So we're more focused on somebody blowing us up, bombing us, Al-Qaeda and all these other things, and we were no longer afraid of the hooded black guy walking down the street that may potentially be a threat in your neighborhood. We were more focused about Arabic people, and like I said, Hispanics became the focal point of life. Go ahead.
And with that being said, do you think, now that we're in this political realm, do you think that the powers that be are using fear to control you?
Yeah, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. everything you watch, everything we see, most of the stuff that's put on around us, think about the news. When you watch the news, there's probably one segment on the news that actually deals with something positive just to bring you down for a minute, and then everything shooting on this side of town, explosion, car crash, accidents,
Media manipulation.
Right. Dow Jones is gone. Economic issues,
Right.
economic downfalls, the housing market, all these, your economic situation, diseases. These things are being bombarded, and not just once a day, but you have so many news stations that broadcast multiple times. Like most of these stations are dedicated to just that alone.
Right.
Then you implement social media. Like now is a fear of fitting in. There's a fear of your status, because now for me, social media is a societal. It's basically a way to judge, or a meter to judge how cool you are in society.
With social media and me, my fear is missing out, because I feel like everyone else is
everybody doing
having
shit,
the time of their life, and my fear is so like, damn, I'm not doing nothing. So because fear is all in your head. So it's like I've created this thing that I'm so lame and I'm not living my life. Social media has created that for me.
Yes, indeed.
That's crazy.
Yes, indeed. But to take it a step further, I mean, to go back to what I was trying to say as far as the fear, so shift into 2000 and what year was it Obama got elected? 2008. Now we got a black president. Black people's egos and lives and everything are at an all-time high in this country. You know, we feeling big as the sun. We like, we got a brother in the office. I don't care what he is, he's still a brother at the end of the day in the office. For me personally, I started watching the generation under me, because I wasn't on the Obama bandwagon in the beginning. So I wasn't looking at it like, we got a brother and stuff. I'm like, y'all bandwagon riding. But 4 years later, I'm looking at how that affected the self-esteem of our people. So now we're starting to grow, progress. We're becoming business owners again. We're starting to run our own stuff. The music industry is becoming big. We're all over TV. The enrollment of college had already been going up since the Cosby Show, so it's probably going up again. We're just thriving as a people. We're starting to get married, because I don't know if people understand that how big of a business structure marriage is versus just the whole love and compassion thing. Marriage is more about business than anything from my perspective. So, but we're thriving as a culture, and I feel like the powers that be realize, like, not only are we thriving, but we starting to influence other cultures.
We've been doing that.
But at the same, they wanted to be like us, but they didn't want to be us. I feel like they want to start being us, or be, they were really embracing African Americans now and the African American culture. And then, like I say, we were thriving as a people. And then the next thing you know, you start seeing pop.
So that's interesting. So you think they use that to control us?
My G, we probably saw one shooting every couple of months of a black person being shot.
Right. We
probably make up 20-something, 16, we make a small percentage of the population, but regardless, it's hundreds of thousands to, if not close to millions, of African Americans in this country.
Yeah, it's like
what's
50
the odds of
million.
What's the odds of every African American getting shot by a cop? It's probably a very small percentage. So when you think about it on that scale, why are you fearing being shot by a cop when it's way too many of us? Like, the odds of it happening to you are probably slim. Not to say that they can't happen, but those are isolated situations that, and they're broadcasting on the news. And then at that point, either we got enraged or we start living in fear. Because there's a generation of under us who are no longer growing up with that fear. They were no longer growing up with that state of mind. When you live in fear, dude, and you angry and you're frustrated and distraction, you constantly in fight or flight mode.
Right.
Your brain is not functioning on the level. Think about that.
Okay, so now think about this. Because we said fear is healthy too. So is that generation coming up under us, is that a good thing they're not fearing as much, or is that a bad thing? Because fear is also your alert system.
I think.
So are they in
short-term fear? Yeah.
Yeah.
They were installing long-term fear.
Right.
It was like those shootings to me were like the new public lynchings.
Right.
Lynchings weren't really punishment more than it was, and I just had this conversation with my mom earlier, more than a method of controlling the masses.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Because they didn't lynch the dumb Negroes.
You got to make an example.
You have to make an example.
Right.
And they were making examples because after a while, it wasn't just regular old black people getting shot. These were like public officials. These were like real important people who were getting popped off. And we were protesting and we were fighting and we were doing all this. And like I say, to a degree, the fear was healthy because it made people come up out of their comfort zone and say, oh, snap.
Right.
Something needs to be done, but there's also a demographic of people like, yo, like older people or certain people like, yo, we gotta watch out. Like, we doing too much. These cats are watching us. And they probably tone their shit down. But yeah, I really do feel like that fear was being used as a form of control. And those shootings were situations that were being broadcasted, not just to bring an uproar amongst the black community, but also keep us in the state like, look, you get back in line.
Right. I think fear, when you're trying to scare somebody, you're trying to control them. Period. So I do think fear can be used almost as a weapon. Right. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Because those situations weren't like, oh my God, this is a bee, I have a phobia, I'm afraid of this bee that's directly in front. Those weren't direct threats.
Right.
That was the long-term anxiety fear. Because we were dwelling on it. It wasn't an immediate threat, fight or flight, let me get through this, now it's over when I'm calm. Right. These were situations that we were constantly being bombarded with that was going to create a long-term fear that leads to the other subcategories that we explained. Right. Anger, depression, hostility, frustration, anxiety.
Right. So it was different. Oh, it's funny. So it's almost like black people were swimming in the water with sharks. Yeah. So that's why, It wasn't like we were out on the land and the sharks were in the water and we was worried about sharks. No, bitch, we in the ocean with the sharks.
So now we freaking out on a regular basis because we worried about this shit. We constantly worried about is this shark hungry and it's gonna get us. Right. Instead of thinking like, oh, man, them sharks out here. I know they out there. I'm aware it's like that. Right. But because we put a lot of energy into that, to the Black Lives. Think about it, we put a lot of energy. And the energy wasn't, it may have been some love in there, but it was mostly out of anger.
A lot of energy into Black Lives Matter? Okay.
That movement.
You know, ooh, that's real political. I'm trying not to get too political.
Yeah,
but I'll say this about Black Lives Matter. It started out as something that it didn't end up as. So, you know, it's now different people are in control of it. Yes. It's just, it's a different
The movement
thing.
has changed. It's not even the same movement anymore. It's completely changed. Yeah. But back to my initial thing, all those situations to me were isolated situations that help create fear to keep people like, come on, man. Yeah. You think about your money. They telling you that retirement is not going to be around. How you going to survive when you get old? Health care, all these different things. And we may not put a lot of energy into your day-to-day process, but long term, it's going to pop up in your head a couple of times. And you have to deal with it. And
they know how the brain works.
Exactly.
They've been studying this for a long time.
Exactly, man. Right. And I'm not saying white people. I'm saying the powers that be.
Whoever they are.
Whoever they are. Yeah. Shit, they could be Arabic, Indian, they could be whatever shit. They might be aliens. We don't know, but whatever the powers that be are. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fear mechanism because I'm watching these young people. Like, I'm watching them thrive, man. I love millennials. Millennials were thriving. They weren't scared of shit. They were actually embracing everything. They're like homosexuality, the LGBT movement, women, injustices. Like, don't get me wrong, there's always an ignorance side of a certain group, of every group. But for me, when I look at most millennials, their minds and the way they think they're so far past the way we think. Plus, they have access to information that we didn't have access to. So
I think millennials are just young. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation too. But I think people are going to grow into different people. I think that happens often.
Yeah, but I think still the core of who they were, like, imagine life not having to stress due to fear about a situation. Like they say, short-term fear is fine. You're supposed to have that. That's your self-defense mechanism for everyday experiences. It's fine when you're using it as a self-defense mechanism, but when it becomes a long-term impairment, like he said, and it starts messing with your ability to function on a daily basis, then that's when fear is a problem. Right. So that stuck with me. Man, when I don't smoke, I can retain so much information.
I know. You better stop smoking.
I don't know. We can figure it out.
But with fear, are there any things like what steps can you take to get through your fear?
So from what we learned, one of the best piece of information that they gave were to eventually embrace whatever it is that you have fear of,
right.
and not just embrace it one time in one big go, like just take one big shot at it,
like go bungee jump.
Yeah, he was like, remember he said you got to do it in increments, and gradually build up and remove it by exposing yourself to it over and over again.
Yeah, the therapist, I like how he was saying, okay, you scared of your ex-girlfriend. Okay, before we like just bring her in the room, we're going to show, how about start off with a picture? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of baby steps into, working through your fear.
Working through your fear.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good thing. And he said he had a fear of urinals. That was interesting.
Yeah.
So
that was crazy. That was a big. That's because somebody pissed on him.
Right. That was traumatic. That was really
traumatized by somebody pissing on him in the urine.
So for the longest, he just didn't do urinals.
He was good.
Yeah.
He was good.
So he kind of had to like take baby steps to kind of work his way back to using urinals. So I guess some people would say, because you know how people say just go all in. Oh, you scared of roller coasters? Just get on the biggest roller coaster.
No, my G,
so that's the wrong way to do it.
No, go find a very small roller coaster at a park fair.
Yeah, go to the fair
first.
Go
to the fair, start with that little bitty small ass roller coaster and work your way up to motherfucking Six Flags.
Exactly. Right. Then go do the Goliath at Six Flags.
Don't start off with the Goliath jump, man.
If you're scared of heights, don't do bungee jump.
Yeah. No, right.
Exactly.
Just start off on a 4-story building, looking outside the window, and then work your way up each floor.
And the virtual reality thing is really good too.
Yo, that was hilarious.
That was a great example.
That is a great example.
Because you have that experience, don't you?
That shit scared the hell out of me, man. I didn't think about it, but like exposing somebody to virtual reality to help them get through their fears was another method they used through the gradual process. And at first, I was ready to call bullshit on that. I was like, man, this is they full of shit. That's not gonna work. Now I thought about it. I was like, yo, son, you put on one headset one time, and you was pissing like a baby. You screaming like a little bitch.
Right.
Because you was looking at a virtual reality sky on the ledge, and I was like, I couldn't handle it.
That's interesting.
I couldn't handle it.
Because your brain still, thought it was like a real life scenario.
Okay, so, and it was another one. There's the Microsoft store, and Perimeter Mall is probably one in Linux also. I don't go to Linux enough. And they had the Oculus Rift outside the store, connected to a TV so you can try the virtual reality headset. And on the TV, it showed whatever the person was seeing inside the headset. So when I saw this one little set on the TV, it was a long hallway in like a museum. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, a giant T-Rex came around the hallway. And then eventually it was like right in front of your face. In the thing.
And how did they react?
No, when I saw it, I was like, that's not that bad. It's cool. I put the headset on, went through a couple. I was like, okay, this is getting real.
Right.
And then I saw this and I knew what it was, and I was like, click, boom. I'm not about to do that.
Right. Because your mind was like,
yo,
that's a real T-Rex.
Yeah, that's a real T-Rex. This bitch about to be in my face.
I know you think it's fake, but up here we think it's real. So we're going to go ahead and prepare.
So. Right. The VR situation, I was there for, like I said, I wanted to call bullshit, and then I thought about my experiences with VR, and it was like,
So should people who's scared of a certain people, I'm gonna start that. People who's scared of certain people, they should like work their way up. They should work their way up. You know what, like do some virtual reality.
I know you're saying this and you're being serious and we laughing, but maybe not in virtual reality. But you know what? That might not be a bad idea. Expose yourself to small doses of other cultures.
First, start with a picture.
You start with a picture.
Start with a TV show,
and then start with a friend. And then as time progresses, then go put yourself in the ghetto on the projects and get the full exposure. I'm bullshitting because I'm a black man and I be scared of death.
I'm about to say, I don't recommend going over there.
Regardless, that probably, because I mean, that's just the fear of the unknown.
Right.
And once you get to know it,
you fear what you don't understand.
What you don't understand. Most people do fear what they understand instead of trying to figure it out. But once you expose yourself to it enough times, you get around it and be like, okay, this ain't that bad. I actually rocks with this. Because that's how I already told you my phobia in the beginning. I was a slight homophobe back in the day, and 5 years of working at where I work at in a predominantly homosexually employed establishment. Because I don't want to go into detail where I work and all that.
Right, exactly.
But in predominantly an establishment where it was the vast, like 60% or 55% of the individuals were homosexual, if I got the gradual exposure, and I slowly moved out of it, and now like, man, I embraced that culture, not just men, but the women, the bisexual, every aspect of it, transsexuality, and it makes me want to understand and get to know them better and do my own. Like I said, I did my study on them to kind of understand them, but I think that helped me get over my phobia of homosexuality, but not only do that, but make me become more solid and comfortable in my own sexuality.
You grew.
I grew from that because I embraced that fear and that phobia gradually.
Because you had to say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm straight, so why am I? Is that what?
Why am I? It wasn't even just that I'm straight. It was more of I understood them.
Right.
So now it's like, wow, but I dislike this individual, especially when I know that the mentality that I had, or I'm sorry, the perspective that I had of that demographic of individuals was not true. You know, like I said, I won't get too deep, but like I said earlier, every homosexual man is not trying to turn every other man into a homosexual. Like, that's not the case. That was just the stereotype that had been embedded in my brain and created that fear and that phobia that if I'm around a gay man, he's going to try to make me gay, and that's not it. And it's probably also the fear of unknown, because at the end of the day, some of those men might have slight thoughts that they're not comfortable with. Never thought about that. That they're not comfortable and they're not sure about themselves.
Right.
So that somebody's presenting this to them or testing them on that, and now they're not really mad at you, but more in fear. The fear leads to aggression, hostility, anger, that whole thing.
Phobia.
So, yeah, it helped me, man. It's a lot. It's a lot. Also, like, identifying the gradual part where, for me, I had my phobia of heights living in New Orleans. I always crossed the suspension bridge going in and out of New Orleans and just driving through the city. And when I lived there, it was perfectly fine. The minute I moved and was gone for more than 4 years and I came back, oh my God, like just the
That's
thought.
interesting.
Just the thought of going over those bridges, just, I'm done.
Right.
Game over. So the constant exposure, man, that makes perfect sense. I feel like if there's anything that you are afraid of, or, you know, just even in my, like, recent life, worried about debt or bills and all this, and the fear of not knowing how it's going to be resolved will create anxiety.
I don't know why we didn't already know that about fear, how to get through it with baby steps, because that's kind of how you do anything new, if you think about it, because you kind of fear it.
Because we're doing this shit off of default.
Right. Because even with working out, like, you fear working out. You don't start working out by, like, running 5 miles and being in the gym for hours. You start by doing, you know, little stuff. Even with cooking, if you want to learn how, you start with little stuff. So I feel like we should already know that.
But let's be real. Most of us don't do the introspective shit that's needed, that needs to be done in order for us to identify these things.
Right.
The fear leaves us in a state of paralysis where you don't even want to deal with that stuff because it's overwhelming you. It messes not only with your brain, but it starts affecting your physical state.
Yeah, muscles tighten.
Muscles tighten and everything else. So a big part of it is just the overall idea of having to even deal with that. And the state of paralysis that it leaves us in when dealing with these different subjects. And like I said, from my experiences, bro, just even from the stuff we've been learning, the stuff we've been going over, the way I look at it, it's only a handful of people who sit and take time out of the day to do some deep introspective thinking. Most people don't want to deal with their own issues for their fear of, like, disappointment of themselves.
Right, yeah.
Or disappointment from somebody else. And I want to say this now, disappointment is healthy. Disappointment is a part of everyday life.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about the actual experience and being disappointed. It's about how do you handle the disappointment. Because everybody is going to do something at some point in time to disappoint you. It's going to be on different scales.
Disappoint yourself.
Yeah, you'll disappoint yourself. So,
right.
Yeah, I think that's why we don't look at these things, because we don't really look at ourselves.
That was my light bulb moment. Getting over fear by doing baby steps is my light bulb moment.
Yeah. My light bulb moment was looking at how how fear is connected to the other things. Fear is not directly the cause of anxiety. It's not fear itself. It's the long-term effect of fear if you don't ever embrace that situation and resolve it. Short-term is healthy because it helps you get out of tight situations where thinking is not required. Because if you stop to think about why this car is going to hit me, it's going to be too late. That car doesn't hit you.
Yeah.
Why are you like, thinking about why this tiger is going to pounce on me?
He gonna
pounce on you by the time. He's like, no, just get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, somebody has a gun. Is he going to shoot it? Isn't he going to shoot it?
Yeah, I ain't
no,
got
just let me. I ain't got time to process that. Let me just get the hell out of Dodge. But also, it made sense why, like, in the argument, the fear of the argument already has you in a tense, tight situation, and since certain those endorphins and chemicals are released regardless, like, it's not always processing and sorting out these situations. It's not always taking the high road, because like they said, fear, there's two roads you can take. The low road, which is the quick exit, instant reaction, or the high road where you take some time and actually process the situation and try to make sense of it and help your brain identify, do you need to do the fight or flight, or is this something that will pass?
Right.
But when you get in an argument and you get upset and the anger and everything kicks in, it's the same endorphins that are released during the fight or flight mode from fear that shut down your brain and your ability to process information.
Right.
So that's why when you get too overwhelmed in your argument, you find yourself completely at a loss of thought because those endorphins have been released.
Yeah.
And I heard this somewhere a long time ago. I just didn't know exactly how it works scientifically. But now after watching this, like, this makes so much more sense.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense.
I really enjoyed this topic. Like, this is, even though we just did 45 minutes to an hour cram on fear, I've been looking at this for like weeks to a month now. Because I've been trying to deal with my own fears and my own phobias. And I dealt with some shit over the past couple of months that I was fearing. And when I finally took my baby steps to gradually embrace each one of these phobias or each one of these fears, I'm not going to call them phobia, but they were just fears that I had. When I was done with each one, I felt a sense of relief and growth afterwards. Like, it's not that bad. I can actually, like, I learned from it.
Right.
And for me, everything that I do from this point on in my life is a learning experience that I'm going to grow from, whether it be a good relationship, bad relationship, good job, bad job, whatever. I'm trying not to dwell on the negative aspect of why that shit occurred. I want to be able to learn and grow from it and become a better person from that experience. And that goes back to from the meditation and the reflecting and doing the introspective work and everything else we've been looking at for the keys to success and becoming a better person.
Right, exactly.
And I also think fear is part of procrastination, which would be another topic that we discuss. Right, procrastination would be another episode, but fear is definitely, for me, in my opinion, one of the key triggers to procrastination. Because you put it off, because actually they said that you put stuff off and you avoid it because you don't want to deal with it because of fear.
And it creates anxiety.
Man, I'm gonna leave it with this. I'm gonna find this real quick because this was the biggest. This was like one of, and it ain't gonna take me that long. I ain't got the internet. It's just a song. This was like one of the greatest quotes. Man, I didn't understand it when I first heard it in the song. I just thought it was like some stuff she was spewing at the beginning of the song to kind of make us get into it. But it to kind of like lead into it was like an interlude leading into the next song. When she said this, it made so much more sense to me. This is it.
Our emotions have a vibratory frequency to them. There are only two emotions that humankind experience: fear and love. All other emotions branch either directly or indirectly through these two emotions.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll leave it with that.
Yo, y'all be good. I appreciate y'all checking in. This is Asania, a.k.a. ICF Baby, a.k.a. Awesomenia17.
And I'm Deshaun.
Man, you so simple.
Delon.
You so simple. Check us out at Lite-Bulb Moment on Instagram, Lite-Bulb Moment on Facebook. We're appreciating the insight. The link to the podcast for YouTube is on the Instagram page, man. Please check us out.
And
follow
subscribe.
us.
And
subscribe
share.
And share,
Tell
man.
your friends.
We appreciate the love, man. Be good. One.